capital development is going to be one of the biggest focus for Petronas as we move forward. It's really important for us to be able to reshape our portfolio. Therefore, reshaping portfolio means we're able to identify the kind of skills and talents that we need in order for us to be able to pivot to new businesses. So because of that, human capital is going to be key. And part of this is about focusing on what we call retooling the human capital equation. It really means relooking at the way we identify talents. It's relooking at the way we identify opportunities for the talent and be able to match those talents to the right opportunities, and be able to also make sure that they're able to grow and accelerate and really help the organization grow. So in the case of INSTEP, I think to a large extent we've been looking at a lot of learning for operators. And I know we've been working hand in hand with PDNT to also extend a lot more into the SKG, the technical executive level. But now I think COVID is a boon. We're now creating a lot more a virtual channel to teach. But beyond that, I think it's also about self-learning. So there's no huge reliance on trainers, but instead there's a lot more courses that they can learn by themselves. But the trainer becomes the supervisor in the plant, right? And they do a lot more coaching. Now we want to make learning continuous. So whenever the need arises, and if you look at a lot of things or the approach that we're taking, and Embark, for example, which is an initiative that HR is doing together with GTCM and the rest, is that we want to make sure learning is continuous. And we want to break it down into bite-sized learning. So which means if you're in a plant and you say, hey, I've got a problem, how do I solve this problem? I don't need to wait to register for a course 3 months down the road. I now have availability of going into a learning platform to find out how to do this. I can learn what we call bite-size is not deep learning, just enough for you to solve that problem. You link that with your superior. So that superior will guide you, but at least it teaches you to learn first, find out what is available out there. So it's not spoon-fed, but there is that motivation for you to seek help first. And INSTEP, I think, is going down the path of having a better way of measuring learning now, right? You're going into the whole matrix of how much do you retain. And if you look at the questions that's been asked, it's really around, the way in which they measure retention is how much of your learning do you apply in your day-to-day job. So the application is where it becomes interesting. So in the context of transition into new energy, then INSTEP itself need to rethink about the approach in terms of curriculum, in terms of the scope of the work. Can it remain focused only on what they have today, or do we have to start thinking of the new way of working, the new type of skills? So in this case, if we decide, for example, we're going beyond basic petrochemicals, for example, we want to go down the value chain. Now, what skills do we need in order for us to go down the specialty chemicals? It's a totally different ballgame. The same goes with, now that people are looking at hydrogen, they're looking at bigger solar, they're looking at other alternative energy. What does that mean to the learning? And before Petronas can get to that level, we have to have the people first. So learning comes first, as a matter of fact. We can no longer think that learning only comes after that decision is being made. Learning must take, and therefore INSTEP must take the first bold move to start looking at ways in which we can pivot. So it may mean, as an example, right? Do we look for new people to start getting them into this new area, or can we also look at the existing people today, our young people in the plants? Can we retool them so that they can play that new role or that new skill? We can no longer stick by the approach that we've had in the past. As an example, your training plant. I think every time someone from outside comes, right, they're like amazed. They're so amazed at the fact that we have a live plant to train on. The only way you can ensure someone's learning sticks in their mind is when they actually do something, and we have that. But today, Do we think that we maximizing the capacity? We haven't. So I think the things that we're doing, for example, recently with the 5G, I think we are now understanding, hey, look, we can actually offer to develop a new way of working through a training plan, a live training plan, rather than go and expose a real plan. Another thing is a collaboration with research. A lot of the issues around research is that they have a lot of technology they've identified. They created a lot of IPs. The problem is no OPU is willing to try out any technology because it has a potential impact on their bottom line, right? So the least risk is actually to apply that technology in a training plan. That means that now you're not only training people, you're also allowing research to train. You're actually allowing a lot of new competency in the form of technology to be trained in or to be developed in INSTEP. So that's an example of how you change your business model. So now that whole issue around the chicken and egg, we've got technology but no OPU wants it. OPU said we want it but we want it tested. We'll never end that conversation. So now INSTEP is the solution. And I think if that opens up really well, I think your capacity will be filled to the brim. So then you have to think about how do you then expand this further, right? So it's not just 5G, it's all the research, new processes. We can talk about everything, right? So we can do all that, and we also do not have to confine, this is another thing, ourselves to only the physical campus. A lot of these things we can do beyond the physical campus as well. The future of learning is here. INSTEP, you have a pivotal role to play in retooling the human capital equation. And this is in line with our statement of purpose, a progressive energy and solutions partner enriching lives for a sustainable future. Happy 40th anniversary INSTEP. Well done.